Welcome back, watch people. Now I wanted to make this video today down by the seaside, right down by the coast. You can see where I am, and I'm going to tell you about something today that I've had to think long and hard about if I was going to tell you in the first place, because it's not pleasant. And it happened yesterday, not far from here, just a couple of miles over to my right. I was filming at Brighton Marina with a good friend of mine, Kevin from Stream Cars, one of my channel sponsors, and that video will be out soon. But our day didn't start well. In fact, it started in the most horrific fashion that you can really imagine, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the video, because it's something that I want to get off my chest, to be honest. I want to share with you guys. Some of you guys are almost like family to me, and it did have a bit of a profound effect on certainly my sleep last night. But let's get into the main topic of the video. I had an incident this week, and in a minute I'm going to play you a video, or part of a video that I made way back in 2016, yes, quite a few years ago now. Just before I was coming towards the end of my watch dealing career, I made a video about bitter watch and jewellery dealers. Now, what is a bitter watch and jewellery dealer? Well, I think what I'll do is, before I tell you this very interesting story, in fact, a couple of very interesting stories today, I'm going to play you a part of an old video made back in 2016 and give you what I believe an example as to what a bitter watch or jewellery dealer is, what he sounds like, and the sort of information he'll give you, and then I'll explain the rest.
First of all, you've got to hope that you're not dealing with the bitter dealer, and there are plenty of bitter dealers out there, both in the watch and the jewellery industry. And a bitter dealer will basically talk down anything unless he's sold it. You know, anything that's belonged to anyone else is no good, and everything that he has is the best thing in the world. These are bitter dealers. There's nothing you can do about them. They are what they are. Generally, and I am speaking generally, they are of the older variety, but not always, not at all. There are some bitter young dealers, but in general, the older they get, the more bitter they can become, for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe it's an age thing. If they're that old, they should have earned enough money not to have to worry about being bitter. But if you take a watch or a piece of jewellery to another dealer to get it valued, or to get an appraisal, this is how you do it. You don't tell them that you've bought it somewhere else. You don't tell them that you want to sell it. And you don't ask how much they would give you for it, etc, etc. In other words, all the time that dealer thinks there could be something in it for him, he's more than likely going to talk it down. The real way to get a proper appraisal of something that you've purchased from dealer A and get an appraisal from dealer B is to say, look, I've got this. I really would like another one. Can you get me one, and how much will it cost me? If you can find one, how much will you charge me for the same thing? Now, that's a double-barrel question, and I'll tell you for why. Because a lot of what I call bitter dealers will often just say, oh, I could have got it cheaper than that, or oh, I think you paid a bit too much, or maybe it's not worth what you paid for it. Well, have they got one in their window? Have they got one to offer you? Can they get one? The answer is usually no. They won't have one in their window. They wouldn't have a clue where to start to find another one. And if they did, they're probably going to have to source it in the trade and pay too much for it in any case. So that wipes out the usual old one about, oh, I could have got it cheaper. You need to outsmart them. You have to say, well, I want another one. How much will you charge me? And the same goes with jewellery. It's very easy to take a diamond into a bitter dealer, and the bitter dealer says, oh, you know, why did you pay this much? Why did you pay that? And they'll put something that's inferior under your nose at more money, or they'll say, oh, I can get the same thing cheaper. Well, let them get it. You know, offer them the challenge. Say, yeah, give me a price. And that's when they'll start to stutter, and that is when you get the real truth out of them as to how much you would potentially have paid from them. It's a very old trick, and it's a nasty, sinister, bitter thing that happens.
So there you go. That is my definition of a bitter dealer. A dealer that just can't admit that he doesn't know what he's looking at, or that just can't accept the fact that he can't buy an item from you nice and cheap and rip you off, or a dealer that just can't stand the thought that someone else has made a profit and not him. Which brings me nicely onto the subject, the main subject of this video. Now, some time back I sold an absolutely exquisite, I mean a really beautiful antique cross to a viewer of this channel. Very nice gentleman. He bought it off me for what I consider to be an extremely good price. That was, I can't remember exactly how long ago, but it was quite a while ago. And I actually sold it to him at my cost price because I'd retired and it was just an item that I had in my collection. I didn't want to make a profit from it. I just decided to sell it for what it had cost me, my own trade cost. So I consider that he'd bought himself a really good item for the money. Anyway, he's then got an appraisal sometime, many months, couple of years, I can't remember how long it was. He's then got an appraisal, a second opinion, and he's fell foul of the bitter dealer who valued this absolutely gorgeous, very rare, and hugely undervalued antique crucifix, and he valued it at about £800. £800 for a high carat gold antique crucifix that was made probably in Spain around 1580 to 1620. It's definitely late 16th century, early 17th century. And if anyone doubts my credentials on dating this particular piece, well, I've been studying this sort of jewellery for many, 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 many years. And in fact, my own tutor and my mentor was a gentleman who was a curator at the British Museum for almost 20 years. And this was his area of expertise as well. And if you know what you're looking at, even if you only half know what you're looking at, it's very simple to tell that this cross is certainly not Georgian or early Victorian as was suggested. Bearing in mind that the gold value alone of this cross is probably somewhere around £800 or £1,000, let alone its antique value and its total uniqueness. This is a one-off handmade piece made hundreds of years ago. Now, unfortunately for the gentleman that purchased this crucifix from me, quite naturally and quite understandably, this phony valuation from an amateur who is either an amateur at best or someone trying to poach that beautiful piece of jewellery off him on the cheap at worst, quite naturally raised a question of doubt in the owner's mind. And he rung me up or emailed me and said, "Paul, this has happened. I've lost a bit of confidence in it. Would you mind offering me a refund?" Or actually, he didn't ask for a refund. He just said, you know, "What do you think?" And I said, "Look, money back, no questions asked, no problems, no hassle. In fact, I'd be absolutely delighted to buy it back from you. Send it back to me and I will issue you 100% full refund, no questions asked." But you do understand that this is worth considerably more than what I sold it to you for. You do understand that by sending it back, you're actually throwing money away. And I'm really sad for him. I'm really sad for the gentleman that has bought the cross back, because he's lost a great, valuable, rare piece of jewellery. And it saddens me that he chose to accept the word of someone that he's never met, whose experience is probably in much later jewellery, who has no idea how to value this particular piece, or more importantly, how to date it. At best, at worst, he knows exactly what it was, and I think more likely he knew exactly what it was, and he was just trying to buy it on the cheap. And if you've got to this point in the video, You can tell that I'm not making this stuff up, because I didn't make a video back in 2016 to prove a point in 2022. That's just not possible unless you've got a time machine. So I think that's point proven. If you're interested in this beautiful little cross, it is now for sale again. I see this piece of jewellery as a very unique piece of jewellery indeed. I'm going to throw up some examples so that you know what I'm saying is correct. These people estimated this to be Georgian or early Victorian. I'll throw some pictures up of some early Victorian and some Georgian crucifix crosses, and then I'll show you some examples of late 16th, early 17th century crucifixes, and you decide for yourself who's right and who's wrong. Which one does my crucifix, which group does my crucifix fit in? Even an amateur can tell if you know what you're looking at. A point there about bitter dealers. They existed back in 2016, they existed in 1916, and they will exist in 2116. They'll exist in another 100 years and more, because there will always be bitter dealers, amateur dealers that either don't know what they're looking at or do know what they're looking at, and they want to cheat you. Right, so let's get on to the rather sad and sorry and somewhat horrific tale that we saw, that we witnessed yesterday. Kevin and I, my friend from Stream Cars, was down at Brighton Marina, a couple of miles that way, and we became aware of a young man standing on the edge of a cliff, not far from us, probably, I don't know, 100 yards or so, 100 metres, not very far at all, you know, far enough or close enough for us to be able to see that he was smoking a cigarette, etc. That'd give you an idea of how close we were. And behind him was a couple of, I think there was 3 police officers. It looked to me like 2 police officers, men, and a woman police officer. And there was about 5 or 6 police officers at the bottom of the cliff, obviously standing back some. And Kevin said to me, "Paul, do you think this guy's actually going to do it?" And I said, "Well, look, you know what, Kev, this does happen a lot around here, you know, where there are a lot of cliffs. People, unfortunately, do this stuff. But I'm not sure, you know, I've also known it to happen plenty of times where it's just a cry for help, and ultimately the person makes his way back to safety." And then this guy did something that told me this wasn't going to end well. He lit a cigarette, which I thought was a kind of strange thing to do in such a position. And it dawned on me that that cigarette was going to be his last one. That was going to be his last treat for himself, if you want. That was his parting gesture to the world. And I said to Kevin, "Kev, I think this bloke's going to do this." I said, "You wait and see. As soon as he finishes that cigarette, I think he's going to go." And he did, right in front of us. And we didn't mention it during the after our, you know, we made a video after that, Kevin and I, as difficult as it was. We went ahead, we made the video, and we said, "Shall we mention it?" And I said, "No, let's not mention it." But I just wanted to get it off my chest, really. I know Kevin was upset. I was obviously upset. The noise that this guy made when he hit the ground, I'll never, ever, ever forget. It was beyond horrific. And there's a couple of things that kind of resonated with me. First of all, I know the watch world and the watch community has its problems at the moment with 1 or 2 people, and there's some nasty stuff floating around. But guys, look, for God's sake, we're all only on this planet for a certain time, and we're all only here once. I think everyone should make the very best of what they've got, or what they haven't got, count their blessings and thank the Lord and the lucky stars for what you have got, and what, rather than what someone else has got. And you know, I just want to preach harmony, not hate. And I didn't know this young man. I don't know who he was. I don't know what his story was, what his background was. But whatever it was, he was a victim, wasn't he? He was a victim of something, whether it was, well, I don't know, it'd be wrong to speculate, but whatever it was, I'm sure that's not really what he really wanted to do, or the position that he really wanted to be in. And it kind of makes you think that ultimately, life ain't perfect for anyone. Some of us are luckier than others. And I wanted to take a moment today to, you know, wish that individual well, wherever he is now. God rest his soul. I hope he's at peace. And also I want to talk about the police as well, because, you know, I'm not the biggest fan in the world of the police. I often think they get things wrong. I think they can be lazy. And I think they got a lot of faults. But, and it's a big but, when that guy hit the ground yesterday, and all I can say is, trust me, you don't even want me to describe it. The police officers on the ground didn't do what I did, and that was turn my back and not be able to look. They ran straight towards him. And one of the police officers worked away on this gentleman for, it must have been 15 minutes, trying to resuscitise him. You know, I had the feeling that it was going to be a waste of time, but I wasn't on the spot. I don't know what position he was in, but he must have worked for 15 minutes with his colleagues trying to keep this man's heart beating. And the police officers on the top of the cliff that were standing with the guy before he jumped, I can only imagine today how they're feeling, because it's playing on my mind and I only witnessed it. How must it feel like if you was one of the last people to speak to that person? How would it feel to be the person that felt they'd failed in stopping this young man from taking his own life? How do you live with that? And Kev said to me, why didn't they try and grab him? I said, Kev, the guy is standing on the edge of a cliff. Think about it. Would you want your son or daughter grappling with someone that's prepared to take their own life and probably take yours with him? Absolutely not. And he said, yeah, I mean, absolutely, of course. It's just something that you don't think of at the time, but it immediately struck me that these police officers were risking their lives potentially as well to try and save this gentleman. So, through a horrific incident, taught me a couple of lessons yesterday. One that is really a bit insignificant, and that is that the watch community needs to start growing up in some areas and getting along and trying to create some more harmony rather than hate. And the other was that sometimes I'm a bit harsh on our police services. So much so that I rung one of my very good friends who is a serving police officer in the Brighton area when I got home, and I said to him, you know what, today I learnt something. Today I learnt that that is a job that I wouldn't want to do, and fair play to those that do it. Right guys, that's it. Something a little bit interesting, a little bit different today. Not all pleasant, not all nice, but philosophical, I hope, at least. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to join us in Las Vegas in under a couple of weeks. We'll speak again soon.